Well, the world has still gone nutty, buddy, even downright cruddy, buddy. We shall miss the past, buddy, but there's still Buddycast. No, don't be naughty, go meet everybody here on Buddycast.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the founder and host of Buddycast, Nick Sorensen.
Happy Monday, buddies. It's time for an episode of everybody's favorite show, Buddycast. I'm your host, Nick Sorensen, and joining me on this rainy yet excellent evening is my new buddy, Justin Dombrowski. How you doing today, buddy?
Good. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Sure.
So for those who don't know, Justin is a historian, an author, a longtime fan of Buddycast, and just overall great buddy. So thank you, buddy, for joining us today.
Sure. It's a pleasure.
So, buddy, first off, I got to ask, how'd you find Buddycast? How'd you discover it?
I think when I first discovered, I think when you first started doing it was around the time, if I'm not mistaken, was when I started listening to Idiotville podcast. Mm-hmm. And, I know they've had you on there. And, I definitely, at least listening to your podcast, love the message behind yours. And I think it's very, definitely inspiring, especially in, the times we live in, as you say, when everybody can certainly use a buddy. So, definitely it was something intriguing. And, ever since you've, been on with the podcast, it's definitely something I try listening to.
Thank you. Beautiful. So you're a historian, especially with Erie. What do you love most about Erie history?
I would say what really kind of I love most about Erie history is that there's such a variety of different types of history you can learn here. Whether it's, living in Erie, Waterford, Girard, any of the areas around you, per se, you really can get involved with so much different history from, when the city, was founded all the way to recently. I think that's really evident with the many different Facebook groups that we have that's dedicated to Erie history, all different types, all the way, from architecture, dealing with the different, backgrounds and cultures that have really made Erie what it is. So I really like there's such a different variety where you can pick and choose from. I find it really kind of impossible for you to focus on one area of history without going into another area. That kind of just makes it, so interesting and versatile.
Beautiful. You love Erie's history so much, you even wrote a book on it. Can you tell our audience about the book by chance?
Yeah, so the book I wrote was published in June by History Press called Murder, Mayhem in Erie, Pennsylvania. Definitely a really eye-catching title for sure. That's my first published book, and that book really details several different cases, with a historical twist, as I always say, about Erie's criminal history. Being a true crime buff myself and majoring it in college, going to Mercyhurst here in Erie, it was definitely something I've studied ever since I was a teenager, actually. So, writing a book about it, and working with my acquisition editor for History Press, what we did is, we didn't want to do the run of the mill just about, just one, type of topic, which is why it's titled Murder and Mayhem. We wanted to do something that wasn't all, doom and gloom, but still, for example, there includes, the bombing of the coal trestle for the Pennsylvania Railroad. Just so it kind of breaks the tension there a little bit. So in a nutshell, the goal for writing the book was really to give you a form of history with a mixture of true crime that kind of can appeal to different audiences.
Awesome. What was the most interesting case, or the one you found you most intrigued in when you wrote the book?
I thought probably the one that I found the most intriguing would probably have to be the chapter that takes place during Prohibition, which involves a crime which was known as the Blackwood Potato Patch murder. And that one was intriguing because I grew up on Erie's east side, and where that particular crime occurred, growing up, I always was over there. I had friends who lived on the east side over by the East Side Tops, which is where that would have occurred, by Joanna Connell. And, it brings back, there's just endless possibilities when you study that type of history, where it's like, you never knew this stuff existed, and everywhere around you, there's something historically connected. So that was one I think that really stood out because, growing up, I lived in that area. I've, traversed it, hundreds and hundreds of times. So I think that one was really, the one that really kind of was the most interesting for me because there was a little bit of a connection there for it.
Awesome. What about notable characters, like people that you just found, like maybe you don't, hopefully you don't connect with criminals or anything like that, but just someone like you just found, like when you do a research project and you really learn about someone. Who was that character for you in this book?
I think probably one of the most fascinating characters, it would have to be a combination of Frank Watson, who was one of the former Erie County detectives, and Mary Holland, who was perhaps in early 1900s the most famous private detective, and she was, a female too. And, for me, those were the most notable characters because Frank Watson, as you see in the first chapter of the book, he's kind of portrayed as kind of a heroic law enforcement figure who was involved in the investigation into the then murder of Detective James Higgins, who was murdered. And then in the second chapter, we see him again, but he is kind of from a different perspective. So it definitely shows the fact, and it supports that Watson was known as a shrewd type of detective, but he was also known as a thorough, lawman at the time. For Mary Holland, it was fascinating because, this was a time where women were not afforded the same rights as men. This is well before, the right to vote and stuff like that. So, that really kind of intrigued me because not only did she, work and cooperate with law enforcement agencies all around the world, including in France and Scotland Yard, but that, again, that's another thing of history that happened right here in Erie. So for that kind of connection to be, connected with our history, I think was something that really kind of stood out for me.
Beautiful. Now, with being a historian, with writing a book, you're obviously indulged in a boatload of research, a boatload of history. Like you said, you made this your major, you studied this throughout school. How much research went into this book alone?
I would say into this book is probably a culmination of probably altogether over the past 10 years. I would say I've pulled from different areas of research. And normally what that, requires is, I would go to the Historical Society, which is just fantastic. And we're definitely lucky in Erie to have a historical society that is so researcher friendly, knowledgeable, and then they have such a, extensive background. Like I said, that really kind of plays to that multiverse historical angle. So, between that, going through hundreds and perhaps I would say thousands of newspaper articles.
Wow.
The thing with difficult with these older cases is that if the cases didn't necessarily come to trial, those police records are long gone.
Yeah.
The city of Erie police really only has records from the 1950s and so onward. So you're not really going to find any kind of bombshell, kind of cases, anything like that. But there would be situations where if some of the characters in the book did have a criminal past and, they were arrested or brought to trial, you can definitely look through the courthouse records that are at the Historical Society. And that kind of also gave me a little bit of, I would say, an input with that. Mm-hmm. So, variety of different sources. I've done genealogy work for over 10 years, so I use those kind of sources and background information. Looking for individuals, and along the way, you kind of, when you do research of that nature, you really kind of, you're investigating the case as well, because you're looking at it from all different angles. You're looking at all the different characters involved, their motives. And also, probably the biggest thing was actually going and actually visiting the actual areas that, where it occurred. Mostly, I would say, for the most part, a lot of the stuff that occurred in Erie, you're not really going to find a lot of those areas that have survived. So being able to go back there, kind of transpose yourself to what it was like back then, so, I mean, and that's just scratching the surface of the type of research that's usually involved, at least with the book.
And that brings up two follow-up questions that I have. The first one is, which one was the hardest to find the information on? Like you said, police records only go back so far. Which one was the hardest? And which site captured your attention the most?
I would say out of all the ones that I wrote about, the one that was probably the most difficult, really the thing uniquely is back then, I would say the early Daily Times newspapers, at least the older ones, they wrote really extensively about the cases. So there was never really, I would say, a lack of information about what occurred. And the crime scenes themselves, at least from these ones, I know there are other cases where it's really difficult to pinpoint. I would say nothing was really difficult in a way to do it. I mean, generally what I had assistance with was aerial photos that go back to the 1930s and 20s. So if I did have difficulty in finding locations, all I had to really do was kind of slowly work through the years, and probably, now that I think about it, the most difficult one was probably finding the location of where the Blackwood potato patch murder happened in the 1920s. And that was because in that time frame, that area over where Tops is now was nothing but farmlands. The Zimmerman Road that runs over there by the East Side Walmart, existed. So, what you generally try to do with that is you try to pick out certain clues, roadways that were there back then. You try to, build up the area. And then, like I said, gradually I would kind of work back through the years and try to match the area up with maps, any kind of census records. Sometimes it could be tedious. Other times it was really straightforward. Like, for example, with the case with Detective Higgins, that was pretty clear. We know where the old Central High School used to stand. Stuff like that's not really going to pose much of an issue, I would say.
Awesome. Hey, speaking of locations, where can people locate your book?
So you can actually purchase the book on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble. The Kindle version of the book was just released as well. And then there is also, I believe, the ebook through Barnes & Noble also. So there's that. If you like to shop local and support your local bookstores, such as, Pressed, Warner Books, which they have, great selections, they also carry it as well. So, there's many different options available for you. And then also, if you're at the Historical Society, they also have it there too.
Awesome. Now, Buddy, do you have any upcoming projects you're working on? Anything with Erie history that you could fill us in on?
Yeah, probably too much, but that's the ADD talk, and I'm always working on something. My protocol, at least when I'm working on a project, is I would say I'm most likely working on two things at once. If I'm working on a current book, I'm actually already working on the next one. And that includes doing the research and actually getting that ready so I can pitch that to, my editor, or if I go with a different publication company, doing somewhat kind of a pitch so I can do that. So the next project that comes out is actually a book called Erie's Backyard Strangler, which continues the true crime perspective here in Erie. It takes place in the 1960s. That already is scheduled for release on February 13th, 2023, again from History Press. It'll be on Kindle, and then also eventually they're going to be doing an audiobook version of it.
Wow.
So, for people who are into audiobooks, History Press, at least with their true crime series, they're doing that. That'll be, again, available all local bookstores, and, if you prefer to share on Amazon, it'll be there. If you want to shop local, again, that option will be there also. Besides that, there's also there's at least 2 or 3 different projects, at least, because, originally starting this whole process, we planned on a series of different books that we wanted to do. Following that, at least tentatively scheduled for late next year, is going to be a book that is going to be called Attack of the Body Snatchers, which will actually recount the 1911 mausoleum desecration of the Scott Mausoleum in Erie Cemetery. And it will also detail the investigation that went into that, using a lot of that one, court case files that have never been seen before, documents that most of the public have never seen since 1911. And that actually also, I've become good friends with John Frank Oldfield, who is the U.S. Postal Inspector who arrested Gilbert Perkins and Charles Franklin. His great-grandson is actually a good friend, which I've been blessed to procure some information from him, which will be presented for the first time in terms of Erie history. So there's a lot of different things along the avenue. And then also, eventually, I plan to take a break, I would say, from the true crime angle. And then I'm actually in talks to do a book on the Mill Creek flood eventually. So it's just a matter of getting things rolling and, getting them all done. So
Nice. Well, I can't wait to read either of those books. Anything that and when you release them, you know where to come to talk about them.
absolutely.
Alrighty. Now, where can our buddies learn more about you? If they want to find out more, if they want to learn more about your books, where can we find you?
So I actually run a Facebook page called Shadows from the Boulevard, which actually details a lot of the research I do, sharing daily facts. And it really started as a avenue for a true crime perspective to look into some of Erie's older unsolved cases, but I've kind of opened that up to be more broader, include other different, areas of Erie history where it's not really just so selective. So that page is on Facebook, and eventually this fall we're trying to get it working so that we have the website up and running. That'll include more daily, articles and, so on and so forth.
Awesome. Now, buddy, we have to make this an official Buddycast, so I'm going to stamp it with my final two questions.
Sure.
The first one comes to us from our buddy Jonas Kane from #Positivity, who wants to know, in your own words, what does it mean to be someone's buddy?
So for me, at least, what it means to be somebody's buddy is to be somebody who's supportive and there for them. I think, especially with, how, the crazy world we live in and the things that are going on, we always, could use somebody to talk to, whether it's a good friend, a coworker, family members, and I'm truly, blessed to have such a wide range of friends and family who, I consider buddies that, I know I can count on, and, vice versa. So for me, I think the most important thing about being, to be a buddy is to be there for people, treat people the way you want to be treated, be kind, be generous. And then understand that, everybody is always, somebody else, may not be experiencing what you're going through, but they may be going through something else. And, your words of encouragement could definitely be something that could make their day. So
absolutely. Kind words are never wasted. Treat others the way you want to be treated. The golden rule. That's what being a buddy is all about. And now, buddy, we've come to what we call the ultimate Buddycast buddy question. You ready for this one?
I'm ready.
I'm going to split this into two parts. The first part is, what's your advice for anyone out there who wants to be an author? And the second part, what about anyone who wants to be a historian?
Okay. So I think what I'll do is I'll start off with the first part. Being an author is, and this is at least the great thing, is that, it doesn't just apply to one genre. It applies to everything as a whole. I think if you want to be an author, one, don't give up. You're going to have obstacles that are going to come your direction that are really going to set you back. Don't let it stop you from achieving your dream. Surround yourself with people who will support you. Also, as an author, you have to get used to criticism. You have to understand that not everybody's going to like what you write. Not everybody's going to like what you do. It's just the nature of the business. And then most importantly, read. Read anything from, romance, science fiction, to horror, to drama, to historical fiction. The more you read, the more you're going to open your mind to different experiences and what you're able to do as an author. And then finally, I would say, if you want to be an author, cherish the rejection letters you get and look at it as being able to use it as a tool that's going to better yourself. If somebody says, hey, I didn't like it for this reason, it's just more motivation for you to improve, fix your mistakes, and move on. As far as being a historian, I would say, read everything that you come across. Always keep an open mind. Never discount anything at face value just because it doesn't sound right or look right. You always want to be, unbiased with what you look at. and this really kind of at least would apply to me is, a lot of the stuff I deal with, even though some of these cases have occurred over 100 or so years ago, some of those individuals' family members are still alive. You're still going to have a lot of people who, through the years, their families have suffered trauma, or those old family tales follow them wherever they go over hundreds of years. So, being a historian, respect the material you're investigating or you're looking into. And, certainly the most important, don't take it for granted, where we live, the city we're in and the rich history it has. And, always do what you can to also be there for fellow historians. I know for example, one of my good buddies and yours as well, John Burdick, is a good fellow historian, very generous, always, there for his friends. He did a great job and was very, helpful with, promoting the book. So that in a nutshell is what I would say. If you want to be a historian or author, follow some of those points. And also, if anybody has any questions, I'm always, reachable through my page as well. Willing to at least give some advice.
Awesome. Well, buddy, thank you for being a buddy here on Buddycast today. Thank you for being a great follower and just exemplifying what it means to be a buddy.
Thank you.
I always love having fans on this show, especially when they have stories like you. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I know, and the thing is, on the onset, I know that, some of the subject material I write about isn't some of the happiest stuff, as my grandfather would say. But it really, kind of like I said, it adds that different flavor of the different people you have on the show, and
exactly
how we're all kind of connected from different walks of life, and how we can kind of improve it and make it better. So
exactly, it's a show for everybody.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. So, buddy, before we end the show, I have one favor to ask you.
Sure.
Whatever you do today, tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, go be someone's buddy.
Absolutely.
All righty. For all my buddies out there, this is my buddy, Justin Dombrowski. Please check out his book. Reach out to him. Just say hi. I'm your host, Nick Sorensen. We'll join you next time on everybody's favorite show, Buddycast.
Well, the days are going fast, buddy, we've got to make them last, buddy, before they've all gone past, buddy, tune in to Buddycast. No, don't feel none, it can make it, buddy, here on Buddycast.